listen closely, because the announcement that just came from Tehran changes everything we thought we knew about this war, everything we thought we knew about Iran's revolution, and everything global markets thought they knew about oil prices. The Islamic Republic of Iran, the nation that was founded in 1979 specifically to overthrow hereditary monarchy, the revolution that executed the Shah's family and banned dynastic succession, the theocracy that wrote into its constitution that leadership must come from religious merit, not bloodlines, just named Mojtaba Khamenei as Supreme Leader. The son, the dead leader's son, creating the first father-to-son power transfer since the Pahlavi dynasty fell 47 years ago, March 9th, 2026, day 10 of Operation Epic Fury. And in the span of 12 hours, oil prices rocketed from $95 per barrel to $119.50 before settling at $110. The Dow Jones plunged 721 points, the Nikkei crashed 7%, and Iran announced that 104 sailors are confirmed dead after an American submarine torpedoed their warship off Sri Lanka's coast on March 4th while it was sailing home from peaceful naval exercises as India's invited guest. President Trump responded to Mojtaba's selection by saying he needs America's approval to lead Iran or he won't last long. Senator Lindsey Graham went further, promising the new Supreme Leader will meet the same fate as his father, an open threat of assassination against a foreign head of state. Iran's parliament speaker fired back, calling Trump part of Epstein's gang, invoking the dead sex trafficker to delegitimize American moral authority. Russia pledged unwavering support for Mojtaba. China condemned any targeting of him as interference in sovereign affairs. And within hours of the succession announcement, Iran launched fresh waves of missiles and drones at Israel and Gulf targets, a message that war will continue under the new regime. The global financial panic, the American threats, the Iranian defiance, the 104 drowned sailors, the oil shock spreading across every economy on Earth, all of it traces back to one decision made by 88 clerics meeting remotely while bombs fell on their country, a decision to choose continuity over compromise, a decision to elevate a mid-level cleric with no public profile because of whose son he is, a decision that violates the revolutionary principles Iran was founded on, and a decision that guarantees this war continues because America has now stated explicitly it will not accept Iran's choice. I'm going to show you the pressure campaign the Revolutionary Guard ran to force assembly members to vote for Mojtaba despite constitutional concerns. The 104 Iranian sailors whose bodies are either floating in the Indian Ocean or trapped inside a sunken frigate 2,000 miles from home, and why their deaths have become the symbol of American overreach. How oil went from normal $70 pricing to $119 panic in 10 days, and why Goldman Sachs says we haven't seen the peak yet. Trump's colonial era claim that America must approve foreign leaders, and why that position removes any possibility of negotiated settlement. The stock market bloodbath across 3 continents as investors realize energy costs will trigger recession, and why choosing a hereditary successor during wartime proves Iran is preparing for decades of resistance, not weeks of negotiation. March 9th, 2026 is the day the Islamic Republic became a dynasty, the day 104 sailors died for nothing in international waters, and the day oil markets admitted $100 per barrel is the new normal. Hit subscribe right now, because if Iran just created a monarchy, you'll need daily updates on whether this revolution is eating itself or preparing for total war. The Assembly of Experts announcement came Monday morning Tehran time, with state television broadcasting images of Mojtaba Khamenei that most Iranians had never seen before. A bearded figure in clerical robes, a man who built his power in shadows, cultivating Revolutionary Guard commanders and intelligence chiefs while avoiding public speeches that might have made him a target. President Pezeshkian called it a new era of dignity and strength. The IRGC pledged complete obedience. Hezbollah announced support from Lebanon. The armed forces swore allegiance. And the machinery of state moved immediately to consolidate around the new leader as if this had been planned for years, which it probably was. But the optics are catastrophic for a regime that defines itself through anti-monarchical ideology. The Shah ruled Iran through hereditary succession for decades, father to son, dynasty after dynasty, exactly what the 1979 revolutionaries condemned as corrupt and un-Islamic. Ayatollah Khomeini promised that leadership would come from the most qualified religious scholars, chosen by their peers based on theological knowledge and spiritual authority, not family connections. And for 47 years, that's how it worked. Khomeini's successor wasn't his son. It was Ali Khamenei, chosen from among senior clerics for his revolutionary credentials and religious standing. But now it's father to son. Now it's hereditary monarchy dressed up in clerical robes. Now it's the very system the revolution was supposed to destroy. Mojtaba isn't even an Ayatollah. He's a Hojjatul Islam, a mid-rank cleric without the theological credentials traditionally required for Supreme Leader. His father wasn't an Ayatollah either when chosen in 1989, and the rules were bent to accommodate him, so there's precedent. But Ali Khamenei at least had decades of revolutionary service, imprisonment under the Shah, close friendship with Khomeini. Mojtaba has a last name. That's his qualification, being the son of the man who was just killed. Critics inside Iran, brave enough to speak despite the danger, are already questioning his religious legitimacy. Scholars are asking whether he has authority to issue fatwas binding on believers. And ordinary Iranians watching this unfold while American bombs fall are seeing their government do exactly what it claimed to oppose. Share this video if you think creating a dynasty proves the revolution failed or proves it will do anything to survive. Iran International, the opposition outlet reporting from outside Iran's control, broke the story of how this selection actually happened, and it's damning. Revolutionary Guard commanders applied heavy pressure on Assembly of Experts members to vote for Mojtaba, according to sources with direct knowledge. The IRGC made repeated contacts with clerics, phone calls, and visits described as psychological and political pressure to ensure the right outcome. The first vote was held online March 3rd, an unnatural atmosphere, according to participants who said it felt more like coercion than deliberation. Those arguing against Mojtaba were given limited time to present their case before being cut off and the vote called. Some members opposed the selection, warning that appointing a leader during wartime could be divisive and that hereditary succession violated principles. But the pressure worked. The vote went Mojtaba's way. Then came the bombing. After votes were cast, but before the count was completed, American and Israeli strikes hit the Assembly of Experts office in Qom. Either an incredible coincidence or a deliberate message that no institution, no matter how sacred, is safe from attack. The timing raised questions about intelligence leaks, about who knew what and when, about whether the vote itself was compromised by external threats. But the result stood. Mojtaba won, and whether by genuine majority or by IRGC intimidation backed by American bombs, he's now Supreme Leader. Comment: pressure. If you think the Revolutionary Guard forced this vote, or legitimate if you think the Assembly chose freely. President Trump's reaction reveals either total confidence that regime change is days away or complete ignorance of how sovereignty works. Trump told ABC News that Mojtaba must get approval from us to lead Iran, that if he doesn't get approval from us, he's not going to last long. Read that again. The President of the United States is claiming the right to approve or reject who leads a foreign nation of 90 million people. This isn't diplomatic pressure. This isn't conditional recognition. This is colonial-era language, where empires dictated who governed their territories. Iranian Parliament Speaker Ghalibaf responded immediately, writing that the fate of dear Iran will be determined solely by the proud Iranian nation, not by Epstein's gang. That reference to Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted sex trafficker who had connections to powerful Americans before his death, was deliberate. Ghalibaf is saying Trump has no moral authority to lecture anyone about leadership given the company he kept. Senator Lindsey Graham escalated further, predicting that Mojtaba will meet the same fate as his father, meaning assassination by American and Israeli forces. That's not a conditional threat tied to Iranian actions. That's not warning about consequences if Iran attacks. That's a sitting U.S. senator promising to kill a foreign head of state because America disapproves of how he was chosen. Israel had already threatened to target whoever the assembly selected, with Netanyahu saying Saturday that Israel would destabilize the regime and enable change. but having Graham echo that threat makes it official American policy. The United States government, through one of its most senior senators, has declared its intention to hunt and kill Iran's supreme leader. The problem is obvious. If you're an Iranian leader and America has stated it will kill you regardless of what you do, what incentive do you have to negotiate? If the choice is surrender and accept American-chosen leadership or fight and maybe die but maintain sovereignty, you're choosing to fight every time. No government surrenders its right to choose its own leaders. That's the most basic principle of statehood. By making Mojtaba's removal non-negotiable, Trump has guaranteed there will be no negotiation. Iran's establishment will rally specifically because America opposes him. And Mojtaba himself, knowing he's been marked for death, has every reason to strike first rather than wait for the same fate as his father.
The destruction of the IRIS Dena has become a national rallying point in Iran and a symbol of American military reach extending far beyond any battlefield. The frigate had spent 10 days at India's Milan Peace 2026 exercises in Visakhapatnam, a multinational event with ships from 74 nations. Iranian sailors marched in parades, posed for photos with Indian officers, participated in joint drills designed to build trust and reduce tensions. Then on March 4th, 40 nautical miles off Sri Lanka in international waters, a U.S. submarine fired a torpedo that struck the Dena below the waterline and sent it to the bottom in minutes.
The Iranian military's Sunday announcement confirmed 104 crew members killed and 32 wounded in what's now the deadliest naval engagement since Britain sank the Argentine cruiser General Belgrano in 1982, killing 323. Sri Lankan Navy vessels rescued the 32 survivors and transported them to hospitals in Gale, where they're being treated under security. 87 bodies were recovered from the ocean, according to Sri Lanka's foreign minister. 17 sailors are still missing, presumably trapped inside the wreckage at depth. Iranian Foreign Minister IRGC called it an atrocity at sea against a vessel that was a guest of India's Navy operating 2,000 miles from Iran's shores, struck without warning in international waters. He warned the U.S. will bitterly regret the precedent it has set, language suggesting Iranian retaliation against American naval assets anywhere in the world. Defense Secretary Hegseth called the strike quiet death and celebrated it as the first American submarine sinking of an enemy warship since World War II. But the legal questions are serious. Was sinking a warship transiting international waters on a peaceful voyage home lawful combat or an act of piracy? The Dena was armed, making it a military vessel, but it wasn't engaged in any hostile action. It was sailing home from exercises, and the attack has humiliated India, which Modi's government has positioned as guardian of the Indian Ocean. India hosted Iran's vessel as a guest. Days after leaving Indian waters, that vessel was destroyed, either with Indian knowledge, which would be betrayal of hospitality, or without Indian knowledge, which would mean American submarines operate in India's backyard without coordination. The oil price explosion represents markets acknowledging this war has permanently altered global energy for months minimum. Brent crude opened Monday in London at $119.50 per barrel. West Texas Intermediate hit $119.48, levels not seen since Russia invaded Ukraine in June 2022. Both pulled back to $110 after reports of coordinated strategic petroleum reserve releases by G7 nations. But even at $110, oil is up more than 50% from the $70 range 2 weeks ago. The surge isn't based on supply disruptions yet, because technically the Strait of Hormuz remains navigable and no oil fields have been destroyed. It's based on fear of what comes next. Insurance companies declared the entire Persian Gulf a war zone, voiding standard coverage and requiring war risk policies at 10 to 20 times normal premiums. No shipping company can afford those rates, so tankers aren't coming. Storage fills, wells shut. Iraq has been forced to cut production 60 to 70% from 4.3 million barrels daily to 1.7 million because export terminals can't load crude onto ships that won't enter the Gulf. Kuwait shut its largest field. UAE is preparing cuts. Qatar halted most LNG production after Iranian drone damage. Saudi Arabia is rerouting some crude through Red Sea pipelines, but volumes are nowhere near sufficient. And Saturday, Israel struck Iranian oil infrastructure for the first time, hitting Tehran storage depots and refineries, sending the message that if Iran disrupts Gulf exports, then Israel destroys Iran's production altogether. Comment oil if you think $119 per barrel crude guarantees global recession, regardless of military outcomes. Goldman Sachs raised forecasts Friday to $100 minimum for 2026, with scenarios reaching $150 if conflict persists through April. That's credible analysis from sophisticated traders, not worst-case fear. A move from $70 to $150 represents an oil shock twice as severe as the 1973 embargo that caused decade-long stagflation. Every dollar increase costs roughly $100 billion in global economic output. An $80 increase means $8 trillion in lost GDP over the next year. Mass unemployment, government budget crises, social instability in developing nations that import energy, and the strategic petroleum reserve that America maintains for exactly this emergency, still at 40-year lows after Trump's 2022 release. No buffer, no backup. Stock markets crashed worldwide as Asian trading opened Monday to news of Mojtaba's selection and $119 oil. Japan's Nikkei plunged 7% before recovering slightly to close down 5%. South Korea's KOSPI fell 8% before settling at 6% down. Hong Kong's Hang Seng dropped 1.35%. European markets followed, with London down 2%, Frankfurt down 3%. American futures showed S&P down 1.7% and NASDAQ down 1.9% before regular trading. Airlines got destroyed, with Carnival down 7.3%, United Airlines down 6.9%, as fuel costs threatened to consume profits. Retailers suffered as consumers face higher gas prices, leaving less budget for discretionary spending. Best Buy down 4.4%. Energy importing nations saw steeper declines as investors calculated what triple-digit oil means for economies that produce no petroleum. American consumers feel it immediately at pumps nationwide. National average gasoline reached $3.48 per gallon Monday per AAA, up nearly 50 cents in 1 week, the fastest increase since COVID disrupted supply chains in 2020. Diesel hit $4.66 per gallon, up more than 80 cents weekly. And this is just the beginning. Crude price increases take weeks to fully filter through to retail as refineries process expensive crude and distributors adjust pricing. If Brent stays above $100, which it will, and climbs toward $150 as Goldman models, American consumers will pay $5 per gallon or more by April. Disaster for Trump politically heading into November midterms. Voters rank gas prices among top concerns. High fuel costs hit working-class families hardest, the constituency Trump claims to represent. Lebanon's death toll continues mounting, with 394 killed in the past week, including 83 children and 42 women, as Israeli strikes expanded beyond borders into Beirut's southern suburbs, displacing 454,000 people. The United States confirmed an 8th American service member died from injuries sustained in earlier Iranian attacks. State Department ordered non-emergency personnel and families to leave Saudi Arabia after Iran damaged the American embassy in Riyadh with drone strike. Bahrain accused Iran of hitting a desalination plant vital for drinking water, deliberate targeting of civilian infrastructure if confirmed. Human Rights Watch released documentation of Israel using white phosphorus in populated Lebanese areas, weapons causing horrific burns, and banned against civilians. Evidence both sides are committing potential war crimes. The 40 days of mourning Iran declared for Ali Khamenei are one-third complete. And instead of grief exhausting the country, we're seeing grief weaponized for mobilization. State media broadcasts constant footage of American strikes on civilians, oil fires in Tehran, the Minab school where 180 children died. Mosques hold special prayers for Khamenei and war dead. Everything framed as religious martyrdom. The latest chapter of Shia standing against overwhelming odds and refusing submission, invoking Imam Hussein's death at Karbala in 680 AD. Mojtaba's selection during this emotional period ensures he begins leadership with a population primed for sacrifice, not compromise. Russia and China both pledged support for the new supreme leader, Putin offering unwavering backing, Chinese officials condemning any targeting as sovereign interference. This creates the risk that regional conflict becomes a great power confrontation if Russia provides intelligence enabling Iranian carrier strikes or China becomes involved through deliberate action or accident in contested waters. NATO is being pulled in against its will. Turkey activating air defenses after an Iranian missile was shot down near Turkish airspace. If Iran strikes Turkish territory, Article 5 could invoke, forcing all 32 members to treat it as a NATO attack. President Trump continues demanding unconditional Iranian surrender. No negotiation, no compromise, complete capitulation to American terms. Parliament Speaker Ghalibaf responded, "Tehran is not seeking a ceasefire and will punish aggressors." Both sides committed to maximalist positions, leaving zero compromise room. Trump says he must approve of Iran's leader. Iran says only Iranians decide leadership. Trump says Mojtaba won't last. Iran says Mojtaba will be defended at all costs. One side abandons these positions or war continues until complete state collapse. I've shown you Mojtaba Khamenei's selection, creating the first hereditary dynasty since 1979, and why that guarantees hardline continuity, not pragmatic peace. The 104 sailors confirmed dead when a U.S. submarine torpedoed IRIS Dena 2,000 miles from Iran in international waters as it sailed home from peaceful exercises. Oil hit $119 before settling at $110 as market price in months of straight disruption. Trump's colonial claim, America must approve Iran's leadership, and Graham's promise Mojtaba will be assassinated. Global stock crashes on recession fears from energy shock. 8th American dead and State Department evacuating Saudi Arabia. Lebanon's 394 dead in 1 week, including 83 children. Human Rights Watch documenting white phosphorus on civilians. Russia and China backing Iran's leader while NATO risks Turkey involvement. Trump's unconditional surrender demands meeting Iranian refusal to negotiate anything except on their terms. March 9th, 2026 is not day 10 approaching conclusion. It's day 10 of economic apocalypse, spreading faster than bombs, political crisis where both demand outcomes the other cannot accept, strategic impasse where victory requires complete Iranian collapse or American withdrawal, neither of which seems close. Subscribe immediately. Enable notifications. Day 11 begins in hours, and Mojtaba's first decisions reveal whether he seeks martyrdom like his father or survival for his nation. Oil at $110. Bodies being counted, stock markets crashing, great powers choosing sides. The question isn't whether this war was justified, but whether anyone knows how to end it before destroying the global economy, triggering World War III, or both. Here's your question. Comment A, if Mojtaba's selection means Iran collapses within weeks, fearing total destruction. Comment B, if hereditary dynasty proves Iran fights for years, refusing American-dictated leadership. Comment C, if 119 oil triggers recession so severe, both sides negotiate despite pride. One of these paths is ahead. The question is which catastrophe we're choosing and whether we realize before it's too late.